Parker Jazz.
I would love to see that
Parker
that
Jazz.
band, man. It's the band menu group, because it's like a group of yours without a piano, and I love that. It's like
Okay, yeah, well, that was the idea because I've done a lot of stuff with keyboards and
yeah,
really enjoyed that. But
yeah,
I felt like time to do a little something different, and so yeah, it's worked out well. We've done well with that group. We've done a couple weeks at the Village Vanguard
oh wow, man, beautiful.
previously, and it's been maybe been 3 years since we played.
Yeah,
So uh, so but it should be really fun. I hope it can happen. So,
yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, the rest of Europe, it seems to be okay still. So
what's that?
the rest of the Europe is still okay. So
Yeah, it
but
seems to be requiring
yeah,
to be vaccinated.
sure.
Enter a concert and that kind of thing. I guess that's the way some countries are dealing with it. But
Yeah, as long as it's not
we'll see.
canceled.
There's been a lot of we'll wait and see in recent months, as you know. So
Bizarre, yeah.
I've been doing some things, so I can't complain.
Yeah, you've been, the last few records, it's in the last year or year and a half, you've been like incredibly busy. I've played Swallowtails for so many times at home now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that was fun. We did that in an afternoon.
Yeah, Steve's songs, compositions. I love that.
It's great. Yeah.
Such a great composer. And but I wanted to start with Swallowtails actually. I saw this trio so many times live. You, John, and Steve, and it's just like, what is it about playing with Steve for you that makes it special? Because I sometimes watch him, and I don't remember the first time when I saw him. Like, you played like Scos, that dun dun gun gun dun dun dun. Yeah, the vamp, and you're doing like all these amazing melodically polyrhythmical stuff over, and Steve is just like, he's holding that for 6 minutes, and it's just like, man, how do you and it's still groovy, even though it's like 4 notes. Like, how is it, you and Steve? I mean, how does this?
It's always been a blast to play with Steve. He's even when he played acoustic bass and carried over to the electric, he's always been someone who really plays for the band. And despite the fact that he's a unique and excellent soloist as well.
Yeah.
But I know his first thing is to play for the band and get in there and do what's needed to make the music happen. And he has a very unique sound, as you know, different than any other bass player I could name, and he's developed that over the years. In fact, it was a while. Each tour we did, he'd have a new, slightly different bass guitar. He was always, pushing for the next sound thing. So he's, and he's got a beautiful approach. So,
yeah.
Mostly I played with him with Sco, actually. So.
Did you ever play with him in other lineups, like without?
The first thing we did together was a tour, which was a Mike Gibbs tour.
Oh, really? I didn't know
that. Would have been in the spring. It was in the spring of '91. I can remember because that was right when I was joining John's band. With Joe Lovano and Marc Johnson at that time, but we did this tour, Mike Gibbs, with a big band. That
really, oh wow.
Actually, the CD came out of it, but recently. But the first time I played with Steve was with that, and John was a guest soloist in it. So we did play together then, but there were other musicians involved, like John Taylor, the pianist, was on that.
Yeah.
And maybe some foreign players whose names you would know too.
Yeah.
Guys playing parts and stuff. But that's the first time we played, and then and after that, I don't think I played with Steve again until we did the record with Pat Metheny.
Oh yeah,
which is
I can see your house. Yeah, like '94 or something. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, recorded in I think '93, and yeah. So we did that, and then it, we did a tour with that too. So
yeah,
it was a summer tour, big tour. It was a lot of fun. And after that, it was a few years, and then went by, and then I think in the late '90s, maybe '97, somewhere in there, we did a trio tour with John. So that's when we really started.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, it's beautiful to hear you guys. I mean, especially playing in, John's tunes or Steve's tunes. It's just beautiful how you and Steve somehow make it work amazingly. I don't know. I mean, you played like with the world's best bass players, but just this connection with Steve somehow for me, when I hear you guys, it's like, wow.
Oh, that's great. Wow.
Yeah. But you mentioned John with like, I think this year, then that means you're celebrating like what, 30 years of playing with Sco? Actually,
off and on. No, but a lot of on. But there were some years where I wasn't really playing with him, but mostly, yeah, we've kept it going. So,
when was the first gig? You remember, and how was it? How did that happen? I mean,
first gig I did with John was in New Zealand.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah, I remember we went there. Yeah, it was it was an incredibly long flight, and that was the first thing I did with John, and that was just, I think maybe Joe couldn't make it, Joe Lovano, and it was just trio with Marc Johnson.
Oh wow, man, beautiful.
So we did that, and remember Louis Belson was there playing, and that's I saw Anita O'Day at breakfast, and that's my first. I had been touring before that, but that was a big step for me to join John's thing. So.
And the connection to John happened through Lovano, right? Probably, I guess. Or like, how did you get the gig with John?
More or less, I'm sure. I think John had heard maybe about me because I was playing in town, and I think he probably heard about me from maybe a few different sources. But
okay.
Joe was an important, I think, referral, if you will, and but also important was that John produced a record of Joe's.
Oh yeah, Landmarks. Yeah,
so
exactly.
He got to hear me more then. I had actually done a session with John many months, maybe even a year before that, and got together and played with him in where he lived then, which is West Beth Artist Housing in New York City, in Greenwich Village, and so we, I played with him a session then, and went okay. But he didn't hire me on the spot or anything for a while, and then I did Joe's record, and then he heard me with Marc, I think, and so then we did a session with Marc also at the same place, and that went really well, and I think after that, John was like, "Yeah, I think."
Yeah.
So that's how that started.
How was the session, Landmarks? I love that record. I spoke to Joe, like this kind of interview, and
sure.
I told him, like, I transcribed all of his solos on that record, those Emperor Jones, and I love what he played there, and the Owl and the Fox, and like how was it for you, like, to play? I think it was one of your first records that you did, kind of.
One of my early ones. I mean, I had done a few before then, but I think that was recorded in August of 1990.
90, yeah.
Yeah, I had done some records before that, but
a
few, and maybe not as high profile.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's like Mark Johnson, Kenny Werner, John Abercrombie, like, oh man. you know, how was that like for you to go into the studio with those guys? I mean, I know you've done like Maceo stuff already back then.
Yeah,
And,
right.
you know,
I had been with Maceo. Yeah, yeah. I was maybe kind of still with Maceo at that point. You know, still doing his tours because I think I did some in the very early '91. I think might have been my last tour with Maceo, but it was great. I mean, I had been playing with Joe some in New York City, like gigs. I mean, gigs at like there's a club called Visiones. Do you
oh
remember
yeah,
Visiones?
yeah, sure,
I
sure.
played at Visiones. I played with his band. I played with a few of his different bands. I think on you know 2 or 3 occasions. Maybe we had multiple nights in a club,
Yeah.
and so I've been playing with Joe, and then yeah, he called me for that date, and I was I was thrilled. So and also I don't think I hadn't played with Marc. Well, I had played with Marc, but I hadn't played in New York with Marc. I met Marc when I was at the Stanford Jazz Workshop
Oh
as a
wow.
student. So I had gone there when I was 16 and went to the jazz workshop there where I, got to meet some players and learn from them that I had heard on records and such. Victor Lewis was there. That was
Oh man.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I met Marc at that workshop, and turns out that I had a group with him. Like he was leading my ensemble a couple days, and I don't know if the bass player chickened out or what, but he didn't show up. So I got to play with Marc for a couple of days when I
Oh
was
wow.
like 16. So and I remember we played some of Marc's tunes that he had at that time. I remember playing Samurai Hee Haw.
Oh yeah, for the bass desires. Oh man, that's ironic. Wow. Okay.
With a group of young players, students, you might say. So I had met Marc, but I hadn't played with him. I don't think at all in New York. So that was kind of a first there. And Kenny, I had been playing with because we were playing with Lee Konitz together. Actually, that was kind of an ongoing gig that we did at the West Side. What was it called? The West End Gate. It was called. Yeah, I think that's what it was called. So, so yeah. So I played with Kenny. I don't know if I played with John. I don't think I had, but
Yeah.
it was really fun. We did it at a studio that doesn't exist anymore called the Magic Shop. It's
Oh
an
wow. I know. Yeah.
odd looking place, odd room with weird surface on them.
I really. Oh wow.
But I remember the drums were out in the big room there, and that was cool. And anyway, it was an important record for me to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And also, John was producing; he heard it, and so and it was for Blue Note, or it ended up being for Blue Note. It was originally for the Japanese part of Blue Note or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It ended up coming out in the States as well. Wow. But yeah, that was a big one in terms of getting more known.
Yeah. It's also like, what about that date with Frank Amsalem? Was with Out for a Day with? That was even before that.
Yeah, it was a little before that. I think that was maybe in the spring of '90 or something.
Because that's like, you and Gary, we talk about a rhythm section. I mean, it's like, damn.
Yeah, I think
Incredibly good.
Yeah, that was the first time I recorded with Gary.
Yeah, beautiful. Otherwise, I wanted to ask you, we talked about you having this trio tour with Walter and Larry, the band menu, and I love your work as a band leader. I mean, especially your writing. I love how you investigate the form and the harmony. At least, sometimes I try to make lead sheets of the music because it's hard to get it.
Yeah.
I probably got half of it wrong, but writing out forms. But what's your process usually? Let's say, I don't know, like Snide remarks, I love that album, like Mayberry or something like that, or 7.5. Like, how do you start writing? What's your starting point? I mean, I really love your harmonic approach. Like, I think that's so important for you. But like, What's your process there usually? Like,
A lot of tunes, a lot of my tunes kind of start with the harmony in a way. Um, Sometimes I'll just start with, let's say, 4 voices
mm-hmm.
and just move them around.
Mm.
I might, get some chord symbols from those voicings later, but I often write with moving voices.
Mm.
So, and once I do that, I mean, I might, it's possible the top voice might have a melody implication there, or I might have to write a separate melody, or, but I tend to write at the piano, and yeah, I generally have to set aside time to do it. So, it's not like the inspiration comes and there it is.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like that at all. I get to, clock in and clock out. That's one of Swallow's things, actually. He and Carla, I think they were like that for many years. They would just, very scheduled time.
Yes, Steve told me that. Yeah, that they were really like, okay.
I'm
no.
not in their league in that respect, because I really consider myself a part-time composer, and they're kind of full-time, especially Carla's really full-time.
Yeah, Carla's, yeah.
That's what she does, but I think most composers, they, if you really want to do it, you got to set aside the time, and some days you don't get anything and some days you do, and it can be frustrating sometimes, but when I was doing each of my recordings, for instance, there was definitely time set aside to write,
Yeah.
So, and then, a couple of years will go by and I won't write a tune or something. That has happened as well. But I like composing because it gives me a different way. It lets me express some things I just can't get to at the drum set. There's just no way. I can't communicate 4 moving voices that way. You can't do that. So
yeah.
something melodic on the drums, sure, but it's not the same. So so my process is kind of like that, but some things, like you mentioned 7.5, I mean, that's a tune I more or less wrote just walking down the street, just hearing the phrase,
Mm.
So it was just, that song reminds me a little bit of was a song, I think it was on Sesame Street, Mana Mana.
Yeah.
That reminds me of that. It's so
yeah.
Almost, call it a stupid tune. I wouldn't be offended, but it was sort of intentionally stupid, and so I could hear that phrase. So all I needed to do was like put a little harmony in there to make it work, and the harmony sort of was easy, that one. So that's an example of one that came together really quickly, but other things are a little more involved, take more time. So
do you write for the musicians usually, like knowing, let's say you would have Walter or Joe or like whoever?
That a little bit, yeah. I'm definitely, and if I can, I mean, some things I write, I'm not, sometimes I write something where it just doesn't have a home. It's not headed for a certain recording or something, and I'm working on it. I did that recently, actually. I wrote a tune. I didn't know where it was going to end up, but if I know what I'm writing for coming up, that's definitely going to influence what I write, for sure. You can hear, well, so and so will just eat this up or something, and also, trying to leave, enough space. I try to write, not overwrite. I try to.
Yeah, I get that sense. Yeah.
I try to write enough that it's interesting, that it maybe make someone play something they wouldn't maybe play otherwise, but I don't like to put musicians in a cage reading my music and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
Trying to make it sound,
Yeah.
And I think that comes from being a sideman a lot, and I sort of like being in bands where stuff got loose right away, so and different every night.
Yeah.
So I've always I've tried to be sensible about that.
Yeah, I mean, being like, let's say, a sideman like with Scofield or Lovano, how were those guys in the beginning to you? I mean, now you established a rapport and of course playing together, but like, did you guys ever talk about the music, or did they, like, how were they as band leaders towards you? Like, did they ever say something like, try this or try that, or not really, or?
Once in a while, but mostly not.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mostly. I mean, especially John. I've played with him for a lot of years, and you know, he doesn't give me much direction most of the time, but occasionally he has something in mind, and
Idea. Yeah.
we can talk about that. So, but you know, I like both those guys. I really like playing with because they let musicians, you know.
Yeah.
You know, and they've played with bands too, so they know how that feels. You know, to be able to, you know, to feel like, you know, you can contribute something.
Express. Yeah.
Creatively. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you see your role in his development as a band leader? I mean, it's like, were you immediately comfortable? Like, you know, think before you think. I mean, you were like really young back then when that one came out, and it's
1989 of August that was recorded.
Yeah, I mean, and Dave Holland, you know, it's like,
right. I had never met Dave.
Yeah,
he was a ringer, if you can imagine. Yeah, yeah.
How did that happen? Like, that's first band leader as a band leader. I mean, that date as a band leader.
Sure. There was a record company called Pony Canyon, or was it Pony? It was called Jazz City. It was part of Pony Canyon, which is a bigger Japanese label, but it was a jazz label from Japan, and they were doing recordings in New York City. I used to record over on Green Street, where they had a very nice Steinway piano. So, you know, I had done just a few records for them as a sideman, usually with the engineer David Baker. And the guy who produced the record was a guitarist you might know who played with Sonny Rollins, Maceo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sure.
So Maceo, we call him Maceo. He was a producer, and so I met him, and I think I was recommended to him by David Baker, engineer, who actually, in retrospect, recommended me for a lot of things early on. And but then I just, you know, I think I just got a call from Maceo saying, we'd like to do one with you as the leader. I said, okay, you know. And we went over the budget. I sort of told him what I had in mind, and you know, and at some point, you know, because I've been playing with Joe Lovano in his group some, and I had also been playing various situations with Marc Copland. So those two guys were both, you know, older than me, but you know, I felt a strong connection to their playing, and you know, I just thought, well, it might be an opportunity to do something, also add somebody different, maybe on bass or something that I haven't played with. And so I was able to get in touch with Dave. I think Marc helped out with that because Marc knew Dave from many years previous, I think, when he played saxophone. And anyway, so I was able to speak to Dave, and he agreed to do it. And 2 days, there was no separate rehearsal. We just did, I think it was 2 afternoons in the studio, and we went and did it in this little basement.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a thrill. I was not writing as much
that's
yet
what I wanted
then.
to ask you. Yeah. If
my writing developed in the years after that. I think there's one of my tunes on there on that first record, and it was something I had written a few years before, actually. So
like Snide Remarks would be like, for you, really like a record, more like, right, that you wrote compositions and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote everything on that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the first time I had done that. But this record, I already knew some of Joe's pieces.
Yeah.
I had one in particular in mind named called Dewey Said that I wanted to do. And I knew Marc's compositions as well. We did a couple of his. I think we did one called Rain, and we did one called Didlia. And let's see. And I asked Dave, would you like to bring some tunes?
Yeah.
He did. He brought a couple tunes, and they were great. And actually they were different than what everybody else brought.
Yeah.
So actually, the whole album had a nice variety to it, and it was a very pleasant. Pleasant, maybe not the word.
No,
it was, it was looking back. It was
yeah.
Great experience. Great that I got to be able to do.
Were you leading bands before already? Like as a band leader, like in the.
I'm not sure because I started for instance, I started doing a few gigs at Visiones as a lead.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure. Right around that same time, I was starting to do a few things as a leader, nothing high profile or anything, but yeah, I was starting to do some. Yeah.
How do you see yourself as a band leader? I mean, like, were you immediately comfortable with that role, or of taking care of everything? You know how it is being a band leader. It can. Yeah, in the beginning, for me, it was like really like, oh shit, it's a lot of pressure in a way. But
now it seems like 20 times as much work to be a band leader as to just be a sideman and show up and play the drums. It's like 20 times more to worry about, And if you're touring, it's that's part of it. But yeah, it's much easier for me to just show up and play the drums. And if I can do that in a good band, that's kind of the easiest.
Oh yeah, sure.
But then again, I like being able to express some musical viewpoints of my own, and that's what I've used being a leader for. But I mean, when I do it, I'm pretty comfortable doing it. It's just that it takes some preparation, attention to detail. Got to remember the parts. Got to review them. Maybe it's like There's always things to deal with. So.
Yeah. It can be stressful. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. No, I'm always a little more nervous about that. Like about gigs as a leader.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Otherwise, Bill, I wanted to ask you also about your connection with Larry and Peter Bernstein. It's sure. Like another long connection you have. I love that about your playing, that you have maintained this long connections with musicians, and especially the trio with Larry and Peter. If you see it, the musical development you guys achieved, it's like incredible. Like,
yeah, I feel strongly about it too. Yeah, we've been playing since '89 at least.
Wow.
So we're over 30 years now, and
yeah.
There were a few years maybe we weren't working that much, at certain points, but in recent years we've been doing a lot, and every year we're doing some touring, usually both the States, Europe, both, so that's been great, and we do it as a collective band now.
Yeah.
And everybody writes music for it, and we have a lot of fun. It's yeah, that's one of those situations. It's just sort of maybe it's a cliche, fits like an old glove or something. But it is like that.
Yeah.
But we keep trying to shake it up and do some new tunes, and keep it fresh, and yeah, I have a lot of fun playing with those guys.
Yeah, it seems like a fun band. Always, when I see you guys are here, it's like,
sure.
Like Toy Tunes. Also, such a beautiful record you guys did. So,
thank you.
Really looking forward to a new one when you guys.
There's one coming out. There's one. It's already done. It's already done. It's already recorded.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah. It should be out by the spring, I think.
Oh, wow, super.
I think it'll be out by April.
And then hopefully, on a tour right, with the guys, or
Well, yeah, we are touring. Yeah, we're touring in the States and Europe in spring.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, I can't wait to see you guys. If COVID permits, it's like amazing.
Yeah.
If this happens.
Play it well at this point. I mean, just we don't have to.
Yeah. No. No. But otherwise, I also wanted to ask you. You've played with so many incredible musicians, and one connection that I asked everyone who played with him is Michael Brecker. Because he was one of the giants and no longer with us. But like, how was playing wise with Michael? And I mean, it must have been amazing. But how did that story happen with Michael? I guess through Pat Metheny, or somehow, or not really.
I mean, I had known Michael for a little while, at least just from festivals and backstage or whatever. I had maybe known him for a little while. I think I played with him on some recording here or there. I did play a little bit with him. Also, I remember I played with Michael with Don Grolnick.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Only for one night, because there was a night
they played together, a lot.
Well, there was a week we did at Sweet. You're wearing the T-shirt. It
was
at Sweet Basil. Speaking. Oh wow, that's a great T-shirt. That's.
Oh man, Scofield got me that one like in '97. Yeah.
Reminds me of the old days. Yeah, Sweet Basil. That was a good. I enjoyed Sweet Basil. That's one of the clubs that doesn't exist anymore that I kind of miss.
Yeah.
But where was I at?
I just about Don Grolnick and.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I did a week with Don Grolnick, and might have been 2 weeks actually. Sometimes you get 2 weeks there, but I was with mostly. It was with. I think it was with Joshua Redman and Joe.
Oh wow, man, nice.
2 tenors, and I think it was Peter Washington on bass. And so we did that, and but I think Lovano couldn't make one night, so I played. I think that's the first time I really stretched out and played, with Michael. And I guess fast forward a little bit. I think Michael had heard this record I did with John called Hand Jive.
Oh yeah.
And playing some sort of different grooves on there and stuff. So I think, and also he wanted to do something, I think, with Larry Goldings. So he called me about doing this record that became Time Is of the Essence.
Yeah.
His record. And so of course I did that. I mean, originally, I think when he spoke to me, I gathered that I was doing most of the record or something, and then it sort of morphed into a thing with 3 drummers, which with Tane and with Elvin Jones. So I mean, I was honored to be on the same record, but so we did that, and then thereafter we did a tour with Pat. Pat was on the record, of course, with Metheny. And so we did a tour that was, I guess billed as Metheny Brecker, Brecker Metheny, something like that. So with Larry, I guess, just Larry and Pat and Michael and myself. Yeah.
Oh,
pretty extensive tour.
Yeah.
It was fun. Yeah. It was great. I mean, playing with Michael was, for a drummer, you can really, he knows where you are, you can really mix it up, and, great time. He played some drums too. So
yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. He had a medium tempo Elvin thing, which was pretty convincing. And I don't think I could do it as well if I tried. Yeah, so he understood. He understood rhythm, and it was fun to play with him because you could really mix it up. And I was, it was great to be on his record.
Yeah.
And, to be around him. Super nice guy. Incredibly one of the nicest people I've met, actually. In the business.
I can imagine. Yeah. You mentioned Elvin. Like, did you ever see, like, when you were a teenager, like Elvin live, or when you came to New York in the 80s, or?
Oh yeah, when I came to New
Yeah.
York, I absolutely. I sat next to his hi-hat at the Village Vanguard.
Oh man.
In the first few months I got to town. Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
I heard him with his own band. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Was he one of those really important drummers for you? Like,
Yeah, sure.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I remember when I saw him that night. He sat down and you know, before the band started, he hit the snare drum and he grimaced, and he took the snare drum on me, turned it upside down. The bottom head, I think, had cracked or something. And he handed it to me because I was right there. He's like, "Here, have a snare drum." I didn't get to keep it.
Oh.
Keiko's wife came scrambling up, and you know they had a spare in the trap case or something, so they were prepared. But yeah, I got to see Elvin right up close.
Oh wow.
And I got to see a lot of, you know, it was very important when I got to New York to see so many people, you know. And at the Vanguard, especially in those days, you could really get close to the drums. Like, I think they had maybe an extra table set up or something. You could practically be on stage.
Oh man.
And I saw a few drummers, Elvin, Tony.
Oh man. Oh yeah.
Both from that vantage point.
Wow. How was Tony like for you? I mean, in the 80s to see him live. How was Tony like to see him play? I mean, like,
incredible.
Yeah.
He's a genius, but it was loud sitting next to him. He's the loudest drummer I ever heard play swing-oriented music.
Yeah, I never got to see him live. I'm like, one of those, you know, I'm like,
Yeah.
I wish moments.
I got to see him a few times, so
Yeah.
happy I did.
Yeah, definitely. Just Bill, one more question I wanted to ask you. Like, I'm really curious how the Maceo gig happened, because you know we were talking about groove before, and you know I know you and Larry played in that group, but like, how did that gig happen? Actually, I mean, you know, like many people maybe wouldn't even know that you did it for quite some time.
Right. Yeah, maybe about a year.
Yeah.
And then there were a couple records in there too. Where
Yeah, Roots Revisited, and that. Yeah, I love this.
Yeah. Well, there is a story there. Remember I mentioned how David Baker, the recording engineer, recommended me for a lot of things. Well, that was one of them. And
okay.
Also relates to the organ trio with Pete and Larry that you asked about, because we used to play at a club called Augie's. You know, Augie's is in the location that is now Smoke Jazz Club.
Yeah.
In those days, it was more or less a dive bar, and they had bands in there every night, but you didn't pay much, paid a very small amount, and for anything additional, the bands would pass the hat, you know, around. So I had a steady Thursday night, I believe it was, with Pete and Larry. So this would have been in, I believe, February of '90. We had been playing Thursday nights, and we had done a little recording with David Baker too, so he had really heard us, and he'd been down to hear the band live and stuff, and he liked the band. But he, I guess they were doing this record with Maceo, where it was going to be, you know, some funk stuff, but also some kind of, you know, swing, like Ray Charles kind of swing kind of stuff. You know, sort of R&B meets jazz kind of a record, and with Fred Wesley and Pee Wee Ellis. And I gather that for some reason at the last minute they were hung up for a drummer, like they didn't have it, like maybe they had been talking with someone else and that something happened, and so they had some kind of production meeting, and I guess we were playing that night, and David said, well, you should come down and hear this guy. So Maceo, Maceo came in and heard us, and he sat in. I remember he sat in, and So on the break, I remember going out on the sidewalk, and he said, "Hey, I want to ask you. I got this recording coming up. It's rehearsals tomorrow, and the recording's the day after that. Can you do it?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do it." So so I remember we rehearsed at Carol Music in Midtown, and then I remember. Yeah, we went to a studio another studio that doesn't exist anymore, A&R Recording, good studio. So we went in there, yeah, Don Poland, Rodney Jones.
Yeah, man, Rodney, yeah.
And I was sort of like, what am I doing here, But but I had some experience playing, kind of backbeat stuff actually.
Yeah.
I played some of that around Des Moines before I left, in a top 40 band, and also another group that I used to play with. So play with an organist named Samo Šalamon there a little bit. I had some experience playing like some funky stuff, so it wasn't, I knew not to play like a bebop guy.
Yeah.
So so anyway, we did the date, and it was amazing. I mean, great to hear those guys. I love Maceo's how he played.
Yeah.
Still, of course, but it was really fortunate that I got that experience.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
Actually, it's just on YouTube. It surfaced a whole. There's a track on that record, "People Get Ready." A whole video surfaced of us recording it in the.
Oh, really? Oh man, I have to check it out.
Studio. It freaked me out because I had I didn't even know it existed, and there was an existing video of us of the take that went on the record of "People Get Ready."
Oh man, I'll check this after this now. Like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
you can see me in there, Don Poland,
wow, that's beautiful.
everybody. I'm not sure. Rodney got in the video somehow. They missed him. But,
wow, incredible.
I mean, I was very fortunate to get that opportunity. It was kind of luck,
Yeah.
But then I went and did some touring with those guys, and they were super great to be around too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Beautiful. Yeah. Just one last thing, Bill, not to take too much more of your time. I just wanted to ask you about your connection with, for me, one of the most underrated piano players ever, Bill Carrothers.
Okay.
I have him on so many records also with you, and especially love the duets record that you guys did. And
yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like that. What is that one? That of a cigarette or something like that, or like those tunes, like the blue stuff. But like, how does your story with Bill begin? Like, when did you guys? How did you guys meet and start playing? Because it's again another one of those long relationships you had musically.
Sure. I had heard about Bill through maybe other musicians. I definitely heard about him through Marc Copland, actually. And somehow I went over. I remember Bill used to live in Park Slope, and I remember I went over to his house for a session or two at that point. Played with bass player, and played.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly who all was involved at this point, but I remember going over there and playing, and then Bill decided to do a recording, and he hired me, and Gary Peacock to play on his record. So that was really doing that recording with Bill, which came out. It came out on Pirouette actually in more recent years. It's called Home Row, but
Home Row, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was done in the early '90s, or maybe '92, something like that.
Already.
And it's a nice.
Yeah.
Nice record. And so that's kind of where it started, playing with Bill, and then when I did Snyder Marks, I hired him. So
yeah.
and he brought such a individual sound,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and also just ears, harmony, especially, the spontaneous reharmonization thing. He's one of the best at that. So.
Yeah, he's such a player. Yeah. Improviser also. Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Bill, thank you so much for sharing some. I mean, I have more questions, but not to take more of your time. So.
Okay. Well, it's been good talking with you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Parker Jazz.